Tonight, J20 protesters on trial, the government shutdown blame game, and young Libyans letting off steam. In a speech today on the Senate floor, Arizona Republican Jeff Flake likened President Trump's attacks on the press to attacks that Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin launched against his enemies.
The free press is the despot's enemy, which makes the free press the guardian of democracy. When a figure in power reflexively calls any press that doesn't suit him fake news, it is that person who should be the figure of suspicion, not the press.
Flake has already announced that he's not seeking re-election, and he said that his remarks today were the first of several speeches taking aim at the president. Walmart announced plans to become the first national pharmacy chain to offer customers a product to dispose of opioids. The company says that when the product, a powder called Dispose RX, is poured into a pill bottle and combined with warm water, it turns leftover medication into a biodegradable gel. The effort is aimed at cutting down on the amount of personal prescriptions that end up in other people's hands. According to the latest national survey on drug use and health, more than half of people who misused pain relievers in 2016 said they got them from a friend or relative. When the Winter Olympics open next month, North and South Korea will march together under the same flag, which they haven't done at the Games since 2006. And for the first time ever, the two countries will field a joint Olympic team in women's ice hockey. The two countries' ski teams will also train together in North Korea. The show of unified sportsmanship comes after a series of breakthrough reconciliation talks that started last week. Saudi Arabia is flooding Yemen with $2 billion to save the country's currency, after the Yemeni prime minister asked for a bailout, saying it was crucial to saving lives. The money is reportedly a gift that Yemen won't have to pay back. The Yemeni rial has lost half its value since early 2015, when civil war broke out between Yemen's Saudi-backed government and the Iran-supported Houthi rebels. Food and fuel prices have spiked, and millions are facing starvation. The UN has called it the world's worst humanitarian crisis. British Prime Minister Theresa May appointed a minister for loneliness today, motivated by a 2017 report that found more than 9 million adults in the UK are often or always lonely. The report cited research that weak social connection is as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The current Minister for Sport and Civil Society, Tracy Crouch, will take up the new post and lead government efforts on the issue. Congress moved one day closer to a government shutdown today, as Republican leadership worked to hold their members in line on a stopgap bill to keep the lights on in Washington. The bill is a desperate compromise. It funds the government only through the middle of February, but it sweetens the pot with 6 years of funding for the Children's Health Insurance Program, and by delaying some Obamacare taxes. But some conservatives are adamant about more military funding. And many Democrats want to use this must-pass bill as a way to get a deal to protect the Dreamers. This brinksmanship is a familiar posture in Washington, and so is the question it raises. If the government does shut down, who wins? And who loses?
Shutting down the government is a political game with very serious consequences. It costs a lot of money, and most of the negative effects fall on people who are already struggling in their lives. And yet it's a game that's played a lot. The Congressional Research Service lists 18 of what they call funding gaps since 1977. Some of these shutdowns are pretty long. Some were like just one day. But the point is, it's not unusual for politicians to go to the brink of shutdown and then past it. This is one of those weeks where it might happen again. Compromise is a very bad word to a lot of politicians in Washington. This is a town where stubbornness is a virtue. So fighting for your principles until the bitter end is always an easy sell. Back in May, President Trump thought that was a great idea. He tweeted that a government shutdown might be just what Washington needs to get things back on track. The White House no longer feels that way.
He's just said that the president certainly doesn't want a shutdown. Last year, he tweeted that a shutdown would be a good thing. So what caused his views to
He said it'd be good politics.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Look, that's never been a preference of this administration. It wasn't then, it isn't now. And again, if that does happen, the blame, the fault will all lie at one place because we would like to see a budget deal happen.
Republicans have good reason to worry about a shutdown. And that reason is everyone thinks Republicans will get blamed for a shutdown. Let's do a quick history lesson. In 1995, Republicans had taken over Congress after decades of Democratic control. They stood on principle, sending President Bill Clinton a spending bill that made steep cuts to Medicare and Medicaid and other entitlements, part of their promise to cut the government down to a Republican-friendly size.
It is wrong for the Congress to shut the government down, just to make...
Clinton stood on principle too, vetoing the bill and refusing most of the cuts. The GOP wouldn't blink, and the government shut down 2 times in the ensuing spending fight. Once in November 95, and again in December of 95. Those shutdowns did not poll well for the Republicans. At the November shutdown, polls showed 49% of Americans blamed the Republicans for it. Just 26% blamed Clinton. In the 96 elections, Republicans lost to Clinton, and they also lost seats in the House, where the shutdown fight had begun. So it was a bad game for the GOP to play. And they didn't play it again for a long time. Until 2013, when they shut the government down again, this time over Obamacare. Polls showed 44% of Americans blamed the Republicans for that shutdown, which, again, the American public did not like. But this time, there was a whole year before the next election, and our voters basically just forgot about it. Republicans won a ton of seats in 2014 that they weren't supposed to win. That's not the case this time. This is more of a 1996 scenario. We're in an election year, and campaigning starts basically now. That might help explain why a Republican White House that was once all in on playing the shutdown game is now doing everything it can to avoid it.
We got 3 blocks of black blocks.
This footage is from a freelance photographer's live stream not long before more than 200 people were mass arrested by police the day of Trump's inauguration. A lot of the guys in black were radical anti-capitalist protesters. But in a tactic called kettling, police swept up everyone, including journalists, medics, and nonviolent protesters.
Go! Let them go! Let them go!
Prosecutors charged all of them with felony rioting, conspiracy, and destruction of property charges. But they did not provide direct evidence that most protesters actually did any property destruction. It was a move legal experts say is unprecedented. Last month, a jury acquitted the first 6 of all wrongdoing.
My lawyer did the most amazing fucking job.
But the government didn't back down and is pressing ahead with the remaining defendants.
This isn't about just the 6 of us, it's about the other 188 people that are left to go.
And check this out. Look, you want your medicine? Do you want your medicine?
He loves medicine because he gets bribed.
These guys were swept up in the J20 arrests.
It's been really hard to not feel us against the world in this situation when it's
us against the world.
It's actually literally us against the world.
It's us and 200 friends.
Sure, yeah.
Elizabeth and Michael will go on trial in July and September. They, like many of the remaining defendants, could face up to 61 years in prison if convicted.
And I said, okay, well, what they're gonna do is clearly they're gonna drop it for everyone they don't have any evidence on, so that's not a worry. And then the indictment came in that added felonies instead of subtracted felonies.
He's an animal rights activist, she's a chemist. She decided to switch to tech just before J20. But now this legal battle is her full-time job.
So tell me a little bit about your background in activism.
We've both been involved with stuff like Black Lives Matter. Michael has done like animal rights stuff.
Yeah, I say anti-fur protesting.
So going to J20 wasn't a big deal. They had never met the other protesters before that day, until they were kettled with them.
We drove down from Baltimore and took the train in, and we're expecting a big crowd. A few minutes later, we're swept up in a mass arrest and spent 36 hours in police custody.
The last time something like this happened in D.C. was 2002. At World Bank protests, police kettled and arrested almost 400 people. They sued, and the district was forced to pay over $8 million. It was the third such settlement in 3 years, and the backlash was so bad that D.C. passed a law discouraging mass arrests.
It is allowed! Go arrest your own!
At protests since, if a few people were rowdy, they'd be charged with misdemeanors. But J20 was different. Prosecutors pressed ahead with felony charges.
It's hard to overstate the stakes, I think. Obviously, this is just a part of an overall trend toward criminalizing protest and criminalizing dissent. I mean, imagine if you're considering whether or not to go to a protest, and the last thing you saw on the news was someone facing 60 years in jail. It's going to stop a lot of people from participating. It's going to stop a lot of people from expressing themselves. And it's going to stop a lot of movements from getting off the ground.
It's easy to say, if you break a window, you go to jail. But the government is saying anyone who sees someone breaking a window is responsible for it. And that's setting an important precedent. It's trying to hold all protesters accountable for the actions of a few, and claiming their organizing was a criminal conspiracy and not protected speech. It follows a wave of anti-protest legislation introduced in Republican-controlled state legislatures across the country.
I think the Department of Justice has put out directives to charge the most serious offenses that you can possibly charge. I think they're, in effect, ruining a lot of young people's lives who have been facing charges for something that they were not responsible for.
D.C. lawyer Mark Goldstone has been representing protesters for 3 decades, including Michael and another J20 defendant. He thinks there's a very specific reason why the government treats the protesters this way.
The January 20th anti-inauguration anti-Trump message also mixed anti-capitalist and anti-fascist messages. And it's those messages that are so threatening to the government.
DC, it's a political city. There are protests all the time. Might they look at some of the people involved in the J20 protests as kind of regulars, as people who are always showing up, who are always wearing black, and are more likely to do property damage than the one-time women's rights march?
Sure. So the police have a predisposition that if you show up in black with a mask, you are intent on property destruction or violence. It's not illegal to wear black. It's not illegal to wear a mask in the District of Columbia unless you're wearing a mask while also committing another crime. So yes, the government does react and react very, very strongly when they see black-clad demonstrators. Absolutely.
But it's the fact that so many J20 protesters dressed alike that's a basis for the government's case. The prosecution said that wearing all black means that no one is identifiable, and that makes it a conspiracy. On top of that argument, video of a protest planning meeting was obtained by Project Veritas, a right-wing group that tends to doctor its videos.
Our goal is to continue to help shut down the city and make inauguration a giant cluster fuck.
The U.S. Attorney's Office declined to comment for this story beyond a statement to the press in December. It stands by its claim that a riot occurred and that the remaining defendants should stand trial. Elizabeth says she's still worried about her case, despite the first 6 protesters being acquitted.
When your trial is over in July, do you think you'll go to another protest?
I went to a protest the weekend after we got arrested.
Yeah. Would you say this trial turned you into an activist?
Yeah, my first major encounter with the legal system definitely gave me some things to be an activist about.
American YouTube star Chrissy Chambers has made legal history in the UK. She's the first victim of revenge porn ever to win civil damages in a public settlement, which was announced today.
To every victim of this horrific kind of attack, I am here to say, you can fight back, and you can win. You will heal and move on, and you will not have to take those steps alone.
Chambers spoke exclusively to Vice News about what her case means.
Are we ready?
I'm ready. You ready?
Yes.
You're gonna help me through this? Yes, you got this.
My whole life,
Chrissy Chambers lives her life online. She and her girlfriend, Bria Cam, are YouTubers who create some of the site's most popular lesbian content.
Oh my god, that's not what I thought it would feel like at all.
Their channels have close to 1 million subscribers.
Thank you for being such an incredible partner and believer in me. I couldn't have gotten to this point without you.
But before she came out, Chrissy had a British boyfriend she met online when she was 18. He was much older.
Talk me through exactly what happened to you.
I fell in love with him. It was my first time being in love, first time being in a serious relationship. Came to be that he was very jealous and very controlling of me and very controlling of our relationship.
They dated for 9 months before Chrissy decided to end the relationship. On the day she broke up with him, Chrissy says he suggested a night of drinking.
I'd never been drunk before, never really even drank alcohol. I got blacked out intoxicated with alcohol that he had given me, and then woke up the next day and he told me he loved me tearfully and went back to the UK, and that was that.
2 years later, Chrissy realised she was attracted to women and met Bria. Together, they started their YouTube channel.
This was 1 month after we made our first video. We went to the Democratic Convention, but basically every street corner that we found a protester, we went and made out right in front of them.
It was our own silent protest.
But just as it started taking off in June 2013, Chrissy got an email that changed their lives.
Somebody alerted us that someone was spreading all of these links on our channel and to our fans and saying, Chrissy's a slut, Chrissy's a bad role model, Chrissy's a horrible person, look at this, she's a porn star. And I did a Google search, like Chrissy Chambers sex tape, and obviously never thought I would have to search that, and then suddenly clicked a link and saw, my worst nightmare become a reality. It was me.
On their last night together, Chrissy's ex made 7 videos of himself having sex with her. Years later, he uploaded them to a porn site under Chrissy's full name. The videos eventually ended up on more than 35 different porn sites.
What impact have these videos that he put online, what impact have they had on you?
I have PTSD and I have night terrors still to this day where, I dream that he's trying to rape or kill me, or somebody else is trying to rape or kill me, like incredibly violent things. And those things have not gone away.
It's had a huge impact on Bria and Chrissy as a couple.
The more people that saw our content, the more likelihood that people would find these videos and see my girlfriend in such a vulnerable way. And so for us, I just wanted to call up in a hole and not exist. I knew that brands weren't gonna wanna work with us. We weren't advertiser friendly, and it's not like we were about to be the next stars of Disney. So it was heartbreaking.
The videos were shot in Georgia, where revenge porn has been criminalised since 2014. But since they were uploaded in England, they fall under English laws. Bria and Chrissy contacted dozens of lawyers on both sides of the Atlantic. No one said they could help. Eventually, McAllister Olivarius, an American firm based in the UK, agreed to take on the case. In April 2015, it became a criminal offence in England to post private sexual images online without consent.
Good morning. We are headed to the police station to go to the police and tell my story so that hopefully they can begin criminal proceedings against my ex.
But the videos of Chrissy were uploaded before the law was passed. The police in the UK told her they couldn't bring any criminal charges against her ex. Civil damages were the only way she could try to seek justice, so she sued him for breach of confidence and misuse of private information.
Nothing compares to how brave this girl is right here.
I'm so overjoyed at those 2 women that they fought. They really had the integrity to fight. They've set a new standard. They've made essentially new law.
Chrissy's lawyer, Anne Olivarius, has made legal history before. She was part of the team that coined the term date rape and succeeded in getting sexual harassment defined as an illegal offence for the first time in the US.
How difficult has it been to get Chrissy Chambers justice?
It has been certainly a struggle because the culture is, on one level might say what a terrible thing has happened to her, but nobody feels a lot of sadness for the girls who get caught in her situation. People tend to blame, it's victim blaming, it's somehow she must have been stupid or a slut. And law doesn't give us a lot of tools, but there are some laws that have been on the books for some time that we were able to adjust and use in this case. And as you know, we were able to get a full apology and an admission of liability, which is rare, but we were able to do that.
For anyone who has been living in fear of revenge porn being used against you, there has never been a better time to come forward. You can find support, and you can achieve justice. Thank you.
The terms of the settlement mean we can't name Chrissy's ex or disclose the sum she's getting from him. Her lawyers say it's substantial, but far less than she'd get if she were taking legal action in the US, where several victims have won over $1 million in compensation. When she first went public with her story 2 years ago, more people than ever started searching for the videos. They haven't gone away.
As recently as 10 days ago, somebody was sending us clips and saying, I want to hire you for a performance. Like, that kind of twisted venom and weaponry being used is something I know will follow me for the rest of my life.
So how does it feel, even though you've won, even though you've been fighting this for 4 years, to be reminded even now that these videos are potentially still out there?
Obviously, I'm so happy to have won and to be able to put this chapter to rest in my life. But having these videos still be sent, having them still come up, just goes to show that, you know, this is a battle that'll never be over.
During the Libyan revolution that took down Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, the city of Misrata was ripped apart by some of the fiercest violence. And after the regime fell, this empty parking lot became Freedom Square, a monument to the thousands of Libyans who died in the fighting. But years of political and economic chaos have transformed Misrata yet again, and transformed the monument into a venue where young Libyans can blow off a little steam.
استمعتوا حتى كان فاتنا تعرفوا على الناس عارف كيف تعرفوا على البلاد شوف الجو هنا.
This is Misrata's Freedom Square. Every Friday, just before sundown, about 100 kids gather here on their day off to try and forget about the many problems facing Libya's future.
Okay, so this is apparently going to be the guy that we can get a ride with. It's totally beat up and looks like one of the craziest drivers here. Okay. That's probably one of the craziest things I've done in Libya, which is saying something.
بعد الثورة ما مارسنا فيها أكثر اللي هي قبل الثورة، وتوا عشقناها أكثر من قبل، يعني فعلا في طعم الحرية كما تقول الجمعة اللي تمر علينا ما نجوش فيها نشوف فيها مش مبسوطين فيها فاهمين.
30-year-old Hamad Rouiati runs a car club for Libyan youth. His team of racers spend weeks repairing and modifying their cars for a race day. With upgraded engines and beefed up suspensions.
زي ما تشوف تو المحرك هذا كما تقول نتاع سيارة بي ام فروج حط فيها على الوطاط وكلهم موديفيكات تشوف فيها.
In a country with cheap gas and an abundance of inexpensive car parts, they say they go through about 8 sets of tires for each car every Friday night. A small price to pay for a taste of freedom in a country still recovering from a revolution. But you don't need a lot of experience to join the club. 16-year-old Mukhtar Yahya took his brother's modified BMW out tonight to see how quickly he could make the tires burst. It didn't take long before the teenager was just driving on his rims.
أنا الساحة هذه اللي للشباب للتطيب للرفع المعنويات حتى شوية، كيف الشباب يطلعوا من الدم ويطلعوا من السياسة شوية. كان النظام السابق أول ما يشوف حالة تطريب الواحد يجيها، لكن تو بعد الثورة وبعد الأحداث هذه كانت واش كم مليون وطلعوا موها وواش والشباب واش. أيوة هذا وجو الجمعة أنا فرحانين.
That's Vice News Tonight for Wednesday, January 17th.